Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about transit Saturn making a square, opposition, or in conjunct aspect to one's natal Pluto. Now, when you have transits that involve Saturn, they could be about limitations, restrictions, responsibilities, duties, delays, obstructions, sorrows, despondency, fears, inhibitions. When transit Saturn is basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Pluto, and I'm going to elaborate on that. When I say basically adverse aspect, well, squares and oppositions are, of course, adverse and negative aspects in astrology. Inconjunct aspects, well, they can be neutral. They are ones that could have good and bad qualities in them, and the thing about it is, an inconjunct aspect can often require some kind of adjustment, um, and an adjustment, transition of sorts, can be somewhat exasperating and have tension in it. So collectively, basically, I do see this as an adverse transit. Now, the thing about this is, again, when you have transit Saturn basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Pluto, well, it may manifest in limitations, restrictions, responsibilities, duties, delays, obstructions, sorrow, despondency, fears, and inhibitions. Those things may conflict with making a major change or transformation in your life. Say if you're, this is in the third house, for example. It might be, a situation where you're trying to make a transformation as far as your neighborhood goes, or something with your communications. You may be, thing is something like this, or in the fourth, say if natal Pluto is in the fourth house, it could be some home renovation or remodeling, or repair is another example. Or even in the 12th house, it could be like a spiritual transformation. But the thing about this is Pluto is also connected with rebirth and regeneration. So this could also be a time where it might require more of a laborious effort and work to actually, if you're trying to resurrect something like a business, for example, or some career, or it's just something with your life in general, this might require a little bit more of an effort, more so than usual. You may feel like there's some kind of delay in doing so at this time. And Pluto is also associated with power and control. So it might be a time where, if you're trying to get control back in something, or some kind of like power in something, say if it's in the seventh house, it could be in your relationships as an example. It might require a little bit more of an effort at this time to do so. You might feel like maybe you're apprehensive in doing so for whatever reason. It might be, say if this is in the fourth house, maybe there's apprehension in getting control back in your in your home life, and maybe you feel by exhibiting too much power in it, or over somebody, it might cause some issues, which it actually can. There's ways to gain power and control in a situation without being overbearing, of course. But anyway, the thing about this too is that Pluto is also associated with crime and corruption. So these things, say if this is something in your neighborhood and you have the natal Pluto in the third house, it could be something where you might have, maybe there's some apprehension in trying to take some kind of lead in trying to, do something about the crime in the neighborhood. Maybe it's something with responsibility. It might be harder to handle the responsibility connected with it if if you're trying to organize, for example, some kind of crime, group in the neighborhood that would combat crime. And again, the responsibility, maybe there's too much to bear in it, as an example. It might be a situation too, or if you've been a victim of a crime, there may be some kind of delay in actually getting anything resolved with it, whether it's apprehending the person, or whatever it may be. Another thing about Pluto, it can be about obsession and fixation. So it can be a time where maybe there's more difficulty in trying to control something. If you have anything that you're obsessing over at this time, it could also be causing maybe more grief and sorrow. I mean, say, for example, if you have this in the fifth house, and you're over, it's over some kind of maybe a lover or some romantic partner you had, and maybe it was a superficial fling, but if you have any kind of obsession with that person, it might be something that might be causing you more sorrow and more grief, because it could be, for as an example, obsessing over somebody that you're not going to have or be with, and of course that could cause that Saturn more despondency and sorrow. It can also be a situation too. I mean, Pluto is connected with shared resources, so it might be a time, if you're in a situation with a shared resources scenario, it could be a business partnership as an example. It may be where there might be some delay, whether it's money, getting money from it. As an example, maybe there's some possession, there's some item you're supposed to be getting connected with it, with the situation, and there might be a delay, or there's some restriction in being able to obtain it at this time. There can be something too. I mean, Pluto, anatomically speaking, is connected with the colon, the prostate, the bladder, and the reproductive system. So if there's any kind of issue with these things right now, it might be causing more grief and stress, more so than usual. Maybe there's more pain connected with it. There might be a situation where even Saturn is also about chronic debilitations and illnesses, so it can be something where a chronic issue might even be harder to control at this time, more so than usual. Pluto is also about support, which can be moral, emotional, or monetary support. Maybe there's some restriction in this at this time, or you're having a harder time trying to obtain it at this time, whether it's from family or from a relationship, maybe something, somebody at work. If you have this in Pluto in the sixth house, maybe it's an employer. It could be somebody prominent in your daily routine. It may be an aunt or an uncle. Also, too, Pluto is also about death and obliteration. Now, many instances, Pluto can just be about a figurative death. It can be could be dealing with an actual literal death. Maybe it requires more of an effort at this time to put an end to something, to put a death to something, a figurative end, whether it's a career or a job, a home situation, a relationship, whatever it might be. Those things might be more of an arduous task at this time. Again, Pluto is connected with obliteration. So if you're trying to obliterate something, say if you have the natal Pluto in the seventh house, it could be some relationship. It might be trying to end some kind of feud with an open adversary, whether it's through legal means, negotiation. Those are things that might be a little bit harder at this time. Pluto is also about manipulation. So you may be experiencing more despondency, more sorrow if you have been manipulated, some kind of fraud at this time, whether it's something with insurance as an example, or just manipulated, conned out of money, just in general, by somebody posing as a friend as an example. Now at this time, another way that this transit may manifest, you might be apprehensive regarding making a major change or transformation. Say if the natal Pluto is in the fourth house as an example, it might be making a home transformation or renovation. Say if Pluto is in Sagittarius, it could be a partition or some kind of expansion or extension on the home. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, now it could be more of a laborious effort to simply end or obliterate something. If Pluto is in the 7th house, as an example, it could be a legal battle. If it's in Scorpio, it might be a vengeful opponent. Maybe it's a criminal. At this time as well, a father, an older person, or an authority figure may be averse to what you're obsessing over. Say, for example, the natal Pluto is in Virgo in the 8th house. Maybe there's some kind of excessive cleaning in the house or something over, trying to eliminate viruses. Virgo can be associated with sanitizing, cleaning. In the 8th house, of course, is associated with viruses. Now, or potential, in this case, could be, is that in this example of potential viruses. Also, too, at this time, responsibilities may conflict with trying to deal with a crisis or some kind of upheaval in your life at this time. Say, for example, if you have Pluto and Scorpio in the 12th house, maybe there's some kind of fraud, or it could be tax or insurance fraud that you're trying to deal with. You've been maybe victim of it somehow, or it can be something of that nature. In Pluto in the 12th, another example could be me in the 12th house, I would say, is the house connected with flooding. 12th house rules Pisces. Maybe there's a flooding issue that needs to be, maybe it's deep flooding. Say again, if the natal Pluto is in Scorpio in the 12th house, and it might be hard. It might be, there might be other responsibilities you're trying to take care of that could conflict with that. Now, another thing too is that chronic illnesses, if you have any, they might be harder to control at this time. Pluto is about control. If Saturn is in Scorpio, as an example, it could be something with the prostate, the bladder, or the colon, reproductive system. Say if the natal, let's say if transit Saturn, another example, is in Libra, it could be something with the lower back or the kidneys as another example. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.